I'm feeling a bit emotional. It's the end of the day already. But I am excited because our final speaker is from Radelaide and he has a beautiful moustache. Our final speaker for NodeFest 2024 loves movies, bikes and beer and loathes a disorganised deli queue. He actually slipped on a banana peel in the street one time. Let's welcome to the stage Alex GRIGG.
Hello, hello. I love the sound effects. I'm gonna press stop. G'day, my name is Alex GRIGG. I've been working remotely for the last 2 years, so this is the most people I've seen in real life for a long time. So thanks for being here. I'm super happy to be here. I'm an animation director. I've been working in the animation industry for about 15 years now. I've done everything from like short films to video games, to feature films, and commercials and music videos, all that sort of stuff. And I find that with my personal work, I'm gravitating more and more to 2D animation, like hand-drawn 2D animation. And that's because when I've got an idea and I can like manage to put it down on a piece of paper or computer, I can usually draw it once, and then if I can just draw like a slightly different version of that picture again, and then I can do it a third time, I basically got animation. I think that 3 pictures is the minimum for animation. I did see some cool GIFs in Simon's talk where there were 2 pictures, but so maybe I think 3 pictures is the minimum. But once I've got 3 pictures, I'm kind of on my way. So I can basically take any idea that I've got on a piece of paper or in my mind and let it like flow into a project without any sort of like permission. I don't need to ask for a set. I don't need a crew. I don't need to, I don't need to ask anyone for anything. I can just like sit in my studio and breathe life into this idea, which is so liberating. It's so nice. It's such a nice feeling. And I think more people, would really love more people to have that feeling of just like not waiting for any permission, just getting their ideas out there. So we'll talk a little bit about that in today. But a little bit of a context, I'm a freelance animation director. I'm represented by Nexus Studios in London and Mighty Nice in Sydney. So that means that I do big commercial work. I've directed things for Apple and Samsung and Cartoon Network, and it's really fun, and that means I get to collaborate with lots of interesting people, lots of people who are way better than me. And I'm also self-employed, so I make short films, I've got a YouTube channel, I make educational content. And I'm not going to talk about many projects today, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. But I thought I'd cut together a little supercut of some of my work, just in case you've never seen anything I've done before. This will give you a primer of a handful of projects I've worked on over the last 15 years. So. Thank you. Thank you. So I feel really lucky to be here, as I said, but I feel even luckier to make animation my career. You might have noticed that's a bit of a theme running through a lot of speakers. Like, we feel pretty lucky to be in this industry. And one thing that I thought a lot about while I was preparing this talk is that I'm never like the best person in the room at any specific thing. I'm not the best writer, I'm not the best designer, I'm not the best animator. So like, what am I going to talk to you guys about? And I thought I'd talk about some habits that I've slowly learned over my journey through this career that have helped me keep pushing my career forward, help keep opening doors for myself, and keep my passion for this craft alive. Nurture that relationship, I think, with my work. So the talk is going to be in two parts. The first habit and idea in the talk is like my completely irrational commitment to personal projects. And the important word there is irrational. So we're going to focus on the irrational part of that later in the talk. And the second idea is that I've got a process for finishing those ideas. And that process took me a long time. It took me a long time to figure that out. And if you're like early in your journey, or maybe you're a little bit stuck, I think thinking about process is really important, because it's very easy to get diverted and like not finish stuff. So learning to finish projects using a process has been really good. So this is maybe the most practical stuff. So let's talk about process first. And I think about creativity in two halves. This has been a really important insight for me to figure out, in that I think about sort of the ideas-y stuff, and I call it the spark. People have other words for this, but this is like that, you know, that feeling when you're like in a conversation and you think of something funny to say, like you didn't logic your way into that funny thing. You've kind of got all these connections happening, you know, deep inside your mind from experiences and ideas, and it's like put it together into something surprising and true. And I think surprising and true is kind of the idea thing. So in the creative process, I need to put myself in a position to be in that mode of thinking. And I can't be in that mode of thinking when I'm making stuff. I've got to be in that mode of thinking separately. And the second part of the creative process for me is the grind. Like, the grind sounds bad, but I don't want it to feel bad. Like, it's really just sitting down and making it. And it's really important for me to separate those two steps, because, as I said before, it's really easy to get diverted. And if I'm sitting there and I've gone to my 1700th drawing, it's really easy to like second guess the idea over and over and over again, and then you'll always like sort of rethink it and rewrite it and go crazy, and I'll never finish anything. So I need to have separate times of the day, separate times in the process to think about ideas, and then just executing it and not second guessing myself and just like charging through. And then I can, you know, spend the afternoon going, maybe I can improve this, but like just having some separate time just to get stuff done. So this is kind of my sort of 5-step process for finishing things. I always love to have a brief and a deadline. This can be a client thing, or it can be a personal thing. I could look for briefs like the Node interstitial thing, or we could do, we can use things like Loop-to-Loop, which is great, Melbourne institution. And that was how I got started as well, was through Loop-to-Loop. So some people love a blank canvas. I hate a blank canvas. And I think of it a little bit like the grit in a oyster, like you build a pearl around it. Like I love to have something to push against. I love to have something that I can think, maybe it's silly, maybe I hate the brief, and that's what I make my piece about. And the other thing is deadline. And so the deadline is really important. It makes it stressful, right? But it also takes away a lot of stress for me, because if every project is like, I think there's this term, the referendum on your talent. Like, if every project is like, this is as good as I could ever do, and everyone could judge me on the product of this personal project, like I would never finish anything, because then everyone could judge me. But if I feel like this is the best I could do in this situation, it takes away all that stress. Like, so having a deadline just gives me permission to make something in a situation, get it finished, and then move on to the next thing. So the project I'm going to talk about is an ident I did for channel E4, and I thought this could be cool because it's probably the closest professional project that's like a personal project. And it's also the project that animators have asked me the most about how I thought about the creative process for it. So in this case, the brief and the deadline was given to me by a client, so that's kind of an easy way forward. And the brief was very open. It was just like, they want their logo, it's a new channel, it's just got to feel fun and lively. It's a certain amount of time to do it in, a certain amount of budget. Pretty low, very low budget, but. So my second step is that spark idea, like the play. I've got to have time away from the computer. So everyone's going to be different in how they do this. Like some people will prefer to write, some people will mood board things. Like I really prefer to sit down with ink and pen away from the computer with a coffee and just draw little pictures based on the brief. And these are like completely shit. Like I would never share these with the client. It's silly sharing them with you really, but I just wanted to put it out there. Like I don't make pretty pictures when I'm in this play stage. Like I'm just letting my ideas tumble onto the page. And most of them are like cliches, or most of them are riffing on the idea before. But like 1 out of 20 or 30 pictures will have an idea, have a spark, have some sort of like funny idea that I relate to. So I just give myself a block of time just to do this. It's not always successful, but it's got a pretty good success rate so far. And so for this project, I kind of came up with 3 concepts through this process. One was about a lobster with hands that a man buys. Another one was about a little being that skips a rock across a lake, and it cracks the sky, and he's inside a diorama. And the last one was about these little fellas who collaborate together to build the logo. And you can probably guess which one the client liked the most. It was the last one with the logo at front and center. So once I've got that sort of spark out, I've just got to solidify the idea, because it's fun to like scribble stuff down and sort of have fun, but in animation, like timing is huge. So an idea could actually take 20 minutes to tell that story, or it could be 5 seconds, and I need to figure out how long the project is going to be. So then I can start to feel out what the emotional sort of energy is in it. And because I'm an animator, I find the best way to solidify this project is to do quite involved animatics. And because this project, I wanted to do some interesting 3D, 2D, fakery, mind-bending stuff, I just put a lot of time into roughing out like a really basic animatic. And if you're not from animation world, animatics are basically just storyboards that are timed out, and sometimes we use music as well. So I think the next one has reference music in it, which I'll evolve later with my musicians. So what you'll notice as we go through is like there's a lot of iteration. Like I'm kind of building and building and building on top, like composting on top of ideas. So once I've got that sort of like really bare bones idea, I'll start experimenting with design. So just picking 1 or 2 frames, usually a close-up and a wide shot, to figure out some like design ideas, like the design language for the piece. So lots of iteration, lots of different color experiments and things like that. And this is kind of still in that play stage. I'm still experimenting. I'm still trying to like sort of find a voice for the piece. And at this point, I'll probably choose a few things, send it off to client, make sure we are all on the same page. And from that point on, we'll sort of be working together to do the grind, do the real, like, okay, we know where we want to go. You've seen like the guts of the film. Yeah, we need to solidify it even further. We need to decide on, I basically choose to do a design frame for every single beat of the film at this point. So every single frame, I'll do a design. or I'll work with the designer. In this case, it was me, but in other projects where I don't feel qualified to do the design, I will hire them. So yeah, I'll go through every single beat of the film, and what this does is it takes away any of the decision-making process in the animation steps, and it really gives us some clear goals. And I find that this is a really good way to create that sort of visual clarity within a piece, make all these decisions. And then once again, we go back to the animatic and just keep pushing it, keep making sure that it gets more and more solid. And I think at this point, we've taken out the reference music and maybe either put a click track in or started to put in the real music. Let's see. Okay, no music. So at this point, I was working with the musicians. We had a click track going in the background, so we could start animating to a click track. Yeah, there it is. And that means that they can be making music, and we can be animating, and we can all be on the same page at the same time. So I think I'm making all this in TV Paint, like just working straight ahead, treating it like a really involved storyboard. And then in the last step, if you've ever done 2D animation, it's just basically that. We take all of those designs, line them up to the moments in the animatic, and then just work straight ahead with the animation. So this is like a little work in progress clip I found. It's not a specific moment in animation, but this is like, yeah, just a moment in the animation process where you can see how the rough animation is looking. We animated the final animation in Animate CC for this, which I don't use that much, but I think it was good for this sort of quite clean vector style. And then once we go through all the rough animation, we do all the colors and comp. Yeah, so that was thank you. So 6 years on, that's still airing every day on channel E4 in the UK. And if you want to know any more about the musicians, they're called Skillbard. They make amazing, really unique, ownable music. It's not cliche, it's just really beautiful. And they've worked with me on loads of my personal projects as well. So something that I've learned early on, so that's kind of the process. That's the kind of a process that I use for all my personal projects, all my professional projects. It'll have to vary depending on the brief, depending on the schedule, but that's basically it. We kind of play with stuff, solidify it, execute it. But they're separate steps, have to keep it separate. So one thing that I learned really early on, and you've probably seen this in talks before or experienced it yourself, is this really close connection between professional projects and personal projects. Like personal projects will often lead to professional projects will pay for personal projects. And that's been, the story of my career as well, and it makes me really happy, this flywheel of personal professional projects. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that irrational aspect of my commitment to personal projects and bring a little bit more nuance to that flywheel. Because one thing that I think is really important for me personally, and maybe for you, I don't know, is that I need to be open to the idea that these personal projects might not lead to professional projects. Like I need to be open to that idea, and I need to be open not just to that, but they might actually hurt my professional work. Like I can't be thinking about what like a marketing executive at a soda factory is gonna think of my short film. Like that is not a thought process that can come into my mind if I'm doing personal projects that I really care about. And by working like this, that makes me happy too. So I've chosen a couple of projects, like these aren't the big commercial projects that I probably should talk about, but I thought I'd choose a couple of personal projects that exemplify sort of ignoring sort of professional longevity. So the first one is one called Future Stock. And so this was inspired by an email I got. You get kind of a lot of emails as anyone who makes stuff, and they often inviting you to a platform. And this one was from a stock footage website, and they were asking. This is just a section of that email, but they were asking me to submit footage that I had to the stock footage website to license it to people. And one line in it really stood out to me. It's like some use it as passive income, which is like really popular term, earning money on footage that might otherwise be sitting on a hard drive. And I thought this was like so funny to send to a 2D animator because like, if you know anything about 2D animation, we don't cut a lot of stuff. Like it takes you have to draw every frame. So there's not a lot of full shots on a cutting room floor. And I said before, I really love a brief. And sometimes part of the brief is just like thinking the idea is dumb. And so rather than ignoring the email, I was like, you know what? Yeah, sure, let's sign me up. Let's make some stock. I don't have any stock footage, but I could make some for you. So I started researching, because you gotta get that passive income, what the best, like most used stock footage is out there. And I found from a lot of blogs, the most used stock footage is these open plan office scenes, people looking happy. I don't know what people are using these for. There must be like presentations a lot in boardrooms I don't see. But, you know, that's what the internet said, that these were the most popular ones. So I thought I'd start there. This would be a good starting point for my first piece of stock footage ever to earn that passive income. So I made this little scene. And the funny thing is, like, I actually animate. There's one guy there who doesn't move, and I put it online, and I actually animated him. I just forgot to turn the layer on in After Effects when I rendered it. And so many people online were obsessed with that guy. They were just like, what's going on with him? I still don't know what's going on with him. He's a normal dude. So I did that, and I was like, that was fun. I like that. But so part of the rules of like submitting it on the stock footage website is you need a pack of, you can't just submit one thing. That's not how stock footage works. You've got to submit like a pack of footage. So I was thinking, like, I'm a commercial director. I know what clients like. They like ads. They want to download a whole ad. So what if I could make like a really generic ad that you could like just put your logo on at the end of it? You could go on the stock footage website, get an ad, and put your logo on it. So I sort of tried to think of that as, you know, the inspiration for this, and I thought maybe this could be the best way forward. And I feel like I was hitting my stride at this point. And so I was like, yeah, I think I need a few more shots to finish off this pack of stock footage so it's marketable. And I was like, people are going to love this. People are going to eat this up. They're going to use these for so many ads. So I made the second one. So the insane thing is that I actually went through the mind-bending process of learning how to upload this to the footage website, and you can actually license these and you actually use them. And people started messaging me, like, people are stealing your stuff for ads. And so people are using them, but when I would click through to them, the only people using these for ads are slightly shady marketers selling sort of off-label brain pills on Instagram. They're just like cutting together these insane clips to sell, Instagram brain pills. And I said that it might not help me professionally, but I did get this great email. I'll read it to you. Dear creator, which is how I like to be referred to at all times. And it basically says we've got a $15,000 budget for 10,000 clips, each of them 75 seconds long. And at this point, we did the math, and there was less minutes between now and the deadline than the footage that they wanted to deliver. So even for me, this was too much. I couldn't take this on. As I said before, my creative career has like really operated on like making personal projects and then making professional projects and letting them gel together. I've made some really personal short films, one called Phantom Limb, one called Born in a Void. I've made lots of little short experiments. And what I learned over this time is that what I said before about animation just feeling like an incredibly direct, personal way of expressing yourself. And the barrier for entry for animation technically gets lower and lower every year. Like the technical stuff, it used to, take a whole building with like film cameras and departments for paint and ink and stuff like that to make animation. Now you can do it on an iPad. It's crazy. But access to education about animation, I think, is getting more and more out of reach for people. Like schools are getting more expensive, they're more exclusive. And the education that is out there is really targeted at very specific points of view of animation, like Pixar and Disney and anime, motion graphics, all of these things. I've got no problem with them. But I think the potential for animation is that personal story, that personal point of view. And if all the education is pointing people this one direction, I think animation isn't living up to its potential. And the other thing that I think about with animation is that a lot of the education is geared towards professionalizing animation. It's geared towards treating it as a job. And I look at other sort of creative mediums like music and drawing and all this sort of stuff. We can just kind of do it for fun. Like you can be a high school student and not want to pursue a music career, but you can still enjoy playing music for fun. So that brings me on to probably my biggest personal project so far. It's a project called Animation for Anyone. And I had this idea that I wanted to create the best animation education that I could and make it free, make it extremely accessible, regardless of whether you're like you want to be an animator in the future, or you could just be like a bus driver or a boilermaker, or you could be a retiree, or the idea is to communicate to as many people as possible and not sort of pigeonhole you into certain styles. And I thought that I could get this done in a few months. Like I had the ideas for the animation fundamentals course, like classes that I wanted to make. And I'm 4 years in, and this has taken up all of my personal project time now. Like I think I've spent over 12 months full time on making these YouTube classes, and I've only got 8 of them. Like they take so long to make. But it's really fun. I absolutely love it. It's like the best project I've ever worked on. So this is just like a little example of how one of the classes opens, just to give you like a little bit of context for what I'm talking about.
Today I'm sharing 4 animation exercises, and not one of them is a bouncing ball. There's the old saying, practice makes perfect. But if I'm honest, I'm not really that interested in perfect animation. I'm mostly focused on giving you a set of tools that will help you make the animation you want to make. Practice is great at building confidence using those tools though. So in this class, I've put together 4 exercises that will help you build your confidence as an animator, practice the skills you already have, and maybe pick up a few tips and tricks along the way. These are all beginner friendly, but I'll show you how to increase their difficulty if you want an extra challenge. I'll be using Animate CC, but you can use any software or medium you like. I've tried to keep things fresh and come up with some new exercises you might not have seen before. They're called the Magic Dot, the Jelly Jump, the Switch, which, side note, is maybe the most useful animation shortcut there is, and the Morph. Let's dig in.
So you can check these out. They're all on YouTube for free if you want to start learning about my point of view on animation fundamentals. But one thing that has become clear is that they take a long time to make. Like I'm making pretty much custom animations start to finish. They're like 8 to 10 minutes long. I made a joke before about like animators not having stuff on the cutting room floor, but I've got so much stuff on the cutting room floor because I keep rewriting things to make it clearer and clearer and like sort of include more people. So this is an example of an animation I made to highlight a point. Is that working? Yeah. So I made that sort of rough animation, and then I animated it 7 times, 7 different ways, to sort of exemplify a point that I wanted to make, and then I still haven't used it, and it's been on my cutting room floor for the last year and a half. Another example of sort of madness, descent into madness, I think was the theme of the amazing title sequence by Never Sit Still, is that rather than screen recording process, I like made my own user interface and hand animated the user interface. It's just madness. It's like so stupid. But I really love it. It's been really great. It's just yeah, another example of a thing I made that I never found a use for. But you might be getting a sense that it's been a lot of work, and you might there's kind of some. I didn't know much about YouTube ahead of time, but I do. There's a lot of people watch these, but there isn't a lot of advertising revenue. I might spend 2.5 months on a class, might be $600 with advertising revenue. It's not really. There's no way to make money on it, and I've been really specific about not putting advertisements in it because I want it to feel like a textbook. I don't want to put an ad in the middle of a textbook. So it's been this kind of like difficult personal relationship with this project because it feels like this personal project is actually pulling me away from professional projects. And it's been sort of a bit of a journey to learn how to live with this as a personal project. But then I got an email. And this is the start of like a little bit of a new chapter for me. So the email was somebody at a big education platform, and they were like, "Hey, we'd love you to make a class with us." And as I said before, you can probably tell I have a bit of like anxiety about making money off animation for anyone because it's for anyone. I don't want to charge for it, but also it's like costing me years of salary to make. So there's like this tension that I didn't know how to resolve. So I thought maybe I'd look into making a specific class that didn't overlap with animation for anyone. And we got so far into the process where I'd made a curriculum and all this other stuff. And then I got the contract. And just like really fine print, let me zoom in for you. This was at the bottom of the contract. So this is the split of revenue that they would give me. It's 8%, so they would keep 92% of the sales. And I was like, like spite is a interesting emotion. Sometimes negative, but for me, it actually turned into like a positive thing. So what I did then was I made a class that was essentially what I knew I said no, thank you. No was my answer to them. And so I made a class free on YouTube, which essentially I knew would cover everything that they would cover in their course that they were going to charge for. So I released that for free. And then I also separately made my first ever paid class, which just goes way deeper. So I said that animation for anyone was going to be about bringing people in and like deprofessionalizing animation, I guess, as a starting point. So when I was thinking about making a paid class, I really thought about what it could mean to like speak to someone who wants to be professional. So I started making a couple of paid classes, one for Procreate Dreams, and now an animation sort of like base camp for doing all the things that I can't do on YouTube education. So YouTube education feels a little bit like I'm a busker on a street and I need to attract people to me, and then like maybe 1 in 100 people will be sitting on the floor taking notes, and other people will just be like, yeah, that's sick. And like, I love that, that's great about YouTube. But I actually wanted to make some classes for the people sitting on the floor taking notes. So that's what this is. And that's been an incredible journey for me because suddenly people are paying for something that, that's mine. Like I've spent a lot of my career helping other people sell stuff through advertising and stuff like that. And for the first time, I'm making something and people are buying it, which is really nice. And so I've kind of gone from personal projects, leading to professional projects, to personal projects just being sort of like crazy boondoggles, which is also really great, to now like this personal project is funding animation for anyone, my other personal project. And that means that it is suddenly a really sustainable community project that I can spend a lot more time on over the next few years. So I'm really excited about that. And yeah, that kind of rounds out my talk. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Node, for having me.
Can you stay on stage?